Hello and welcome to For the Love of Truth. This is episode 235 and is another in the Back to Health series. Today I am speaking to Robert, who first reached out to me about 6 weeks ago and wanted to talk to me about Lyme disease and the protocols and procedures he has found that are effective for him. The conversation evolved to talk about toxicity, particularly physical and mental toxicity, including things like heavy metals and things you can do to remove them from your system, and the importance of the purification of both mind and body on your journey back to health. We also touched on his time in jail, spirituality, and his quest for enlightenment. And if you have a story you'd like to share with us about your journey back to health, then I'd like to talk to you about that. The best thing to do is to go to the description of the video or the podcast, click on the link which will take you to the Contact Us form on fortheloveoftruth.co.uk, and you and I can start a dialogue. And you guys are amazing, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you in the next episode. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye. Robert, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. And I don't really know what it is you want to talk to me about today. So if I hand it over to you, and I'll just jump in with any questions I have, if that's all right with you.
Sure. Yeah. So all my life, I've struggled with being healthy and feeling well. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I found out I had Lyme disease.
Yeah.
My dad, he has it as well. And, he's the one that's been throwing money at all this stuff, trying to figure it out. He's also not felt very well most
Mhm.
of his life. And so anyways, we're finally on this path trying to figure out, how to fix ourselves and whatnot. And just a background of kind of what Lyme disease is and the history of it. They're these little, they call them spirochetes. They're kind of shaped like spirals. They're
Mhm.
these little drill things, and they just drill into your cells, and they just steal all your energy from your cells. They're little bores.
Mhm.
And I guess, there was kind of a version of it that's been around for a long time, but it wasn't as dangerous. And I guess after World War II, the Operation Paperclip stuff, we got a bunch of these scientists from
Yeah.
from Germany and whatnot,
Yep.
and they were working on these biological weapons off of New York on Plum Island, and they were infecting these ticks with this new version of Lyme disease. And these ticks were getting onto deer that were on the island, but they didn't know the deer could swim. So the deer, yeah, deer swam, and Lyme, Connecticut is kind of where it all broke out. That's where the
All right.
Lyme came from. Yeah, it's interesting little story. So, anyways, after that, it just kind of spread like wildfire, and a lot of places where ticks are really prevalent is where it kind of took over.
Mhm.
My dad, he grew up in a pretty rough household. Grandpa was a Hell's Angel, and lived in some shitholes that had a lot of ticks and stuff. And who knows when he got it all. But we found also that a lot of doctors, they think that it can be transferred, sexually, and from mother to child. So, I mean, there's just gotta be a huge percentage of the population that have these little bugs in them that just have no idea,
Mhm.
system's compromised. And so, you'll be doing great for a long time, you'll get real sick, and then all of a sudden they come out and they start doing their thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Nothing like kicking a man when he's down, then.
yeah, yeah, they're they're tricky little boogers. And the Lyme is just, one of the many, I guess they call them co-infections that go along with it. Like, there's Bartonella, which is cat scratch fever. You ever heard of that?
No.
Anyways, there's just a bunch of these other little bugs that'll come in, at the same time, and they all kind of work together to suppress your immune system, and just basically, they're intercellular parasites. Anyway, so that's one of the main problems we've been dealing with, that we found out about, and we've been learning about. I guess the average person goes to, I think, 24 doctors before they get diagnosed with Lyme. Um, they call it the basically the imitator. Like it imitates so many other things that it's just often misdiagnosed.
Hmm.
It's not easy to hit on the head, and testing is not great. You can have bad Lyme disease and take a test, and they're just not real active during that cycle period or whatnot, and
Hmm.
you don't even get a positive. So it's
Hmm.
tricky stuff.
Maybe they should use the PCR test on it because everything comes out positive then.
Yeah, right. No, actually, they were using PCR tests for it,
Mm.
before all this coronavirus stuff, and even then, they're these little bugs have different cycles and whatnot, and so if you don't
Yeah,
catch them at the right time, they won't really show up.
yeah. But then, to be fair, the PCR shouldn't be used for testing anyway. It's never designed for that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, anyways, let's see, what do I want to get into next? So, about let's see, it's been about 6 years ago now. I got into a bit of trouble as a youngster, and so I was in a county jail, and they just built this new county jail. It's all cinder block walls. They had cell phone blockers in it, so there weren't any like radio signals and stuff in there. And anyways, I was reading a lot into Buddhism, and really just trying to
Hmm.
change my karmic output, and really just being, just trying to do the best I possibly could. And I finally reached this point of bliss where everything was just the best I ever felt.
Hmm.
And if somebody needed something, I'd give it to them, no hesitation. Just a really holistic. I was reading about the chakras, and I was
Hmm.
working through them, and I managed to get to this point of, basically enlightenment, if you want to call it that, where I felt like I just didn't have any questions I didn't have the answer to.
Hmm.
And I uh I got transferred to a state jail, which is just like the biggest shithole you ever seen. um and there's mold, and all kinds of stuff there, and the first thing they do when you get there is give you these big old tetanus shots and all this junk. And before I knew it, I was back to feeling like crap again.
Hmm.
And
Well, it's no
you
surprise
know
when they filled you up with poisons and put you in a toxic environment.
oh yeah, yeah. And really being in that clean new jail was probably one of the best things for me, because mold illness and all that really ties into Lyme disease, because it also suppresses your immune system. It's got all these toxins. It's a big stressor on the body, and a lot
Mm.
of people live live around mold. It's extremely common
Hmm.
with the way we build nowadays.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just drank my coffee. I'm feeling a little overstimulated, trying to calm down.
Take a big breath.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had done a lot of kind of spiritual work before, and had gotten pretty far, but it was just when I got to this really clean environment that I could
Hmm.
finally break free of all these chains that were holding me back. Um, and I thought it was pretty interesting too, because there was no Wi-Fi or cell phone signals, and I don't know how big of a role that played, but I'm sure it
Huge.
played a role in it.
Plays a huge role. People don't
Yeah.
realize because they can't see it. They can't. They don't directly feel it. The body does.
Yep. Yeah. So I went through all that, and I got back out, and just felt like a blank piece of paper, just kind of same old crap. And it's just after you felt that incredible spiritual bliss, nothing is just, it's like, man, why can't I get back to that?
Yep.
But anyways, so I've been over the years working towards that, or at least trying to. um you know biggest thing I found is, just never give up. You got to just keep looking for answers, and there's always stuff out there.
Yeah, but they just keep asking questions. I found is the best approach because as long as you keep asking questions and you don't quit, you'll eventually get your answer.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, recently I had have you ever heard of a Moldavite? It's a
Yes.
certain yeah. Anyways, it for people listening that don't know about it, it's this they call it, I guess, an asteroid or something not from this planet that
Yeah.
is only found in the Czechoslovakia area.
Yeah.
And it's there's these green crystals that just have ridiculous energy. Yeah, there you go. I got a little piece about the same size. Um, anyways, it's probably one of the strongest rocks I've ever held on to.
Yeah.
It's got some immense power.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, I recently got some of that, and you can kind of just hold on to that stuff and just listen to what it tells you to do, and
Yeah.
kind of make some breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked into like tachyon energy stuff?
Yep.
Yeah, I have some of those products too. I think it's kind of a similar
Yeah.
0 point energy
Yeah.
field.
Yeah. No, I like all that stuff, and I have big crystals and all sorts going on.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, oh yeah,
It took me a while to get used to that one. It's a big piece, and it was like, whoa, okay, that'll settle down eventually.
yeah. I'm kind of oversensitive to a lot of that stuff these days. Like the Moldavite, I have to keep in a little EMF proof bag sometimes because sometimes it's just too much. I can't even be in the same room with it. It just
Yeah.
make my brain go crazy. But recently I had tried these acupressure shoe insoles. They're so great. They have little raised bumps that
Hmm.
stimulate different points on your feet.
Hmm.
Um, and you just kind of feel like your legs are more alive. I've really like those.
You probably have you looked at Jinsen Jitsu as well?
No, what is that?
Okay, well, acupressure is where you apply pressure, like you were talking about then. But Jinsen
Mhm.
Jitsu is where you apply touch, but it does the same kind of thing. It's an ancient Japanese healing art. I came
Okay.
across it quite recently, and it's really interesting because you're using touch, but on the pressure points, and you
So is it
get.
like tapping?
It's not tapping. No, it literally is just
Okay.
touch. So you're touching different fingertips and different parts of your body, but it really does some interesting things. It's called Jin Shinjitsu. I'll send you a link later on. It's worth having a look at. It's very, very easy to do.
Interesting. Yeah, I know quite a few massage therapists and some people that are into Reiki.
Hmm.
Um and they talk a lot about these tapping points, which is
Yeah,
basically the same thing, but you just kind of tap on those spots, to
yeah,
really kind of get energy moving through them.
yeah,
Um so one of the biggest helps for me over the years has just been cleansing the body. And
yeah,
one of the ways I go about doing that is through MSM. It's a sulfur
yeah,
methyl. I can't remember the exact name, but
yeah.
it really cleans out your joints and really um,
Have you used DMSO? Because that does a similar thing as well.
yeah, it's a very similar compound.
Yeah,
Yeah, I found that to be a little bit harsher on my body maybe.
yeah.
But I'm sure it's really
But
good for
it's
you.
primarily the sulfur, which is what a lot of the
Yeah.
old physicians used to use until the pharma industry said, no, 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 don't use that. That works. Use this instead.
Yeah, and so, that was one of the routes of cleansing, and then I would also, I can't remember what it's called, but basically you get these, you get your blender, you get some apple cider vinegar, you get the hottest pepper you can find, some garlic, onion, turmeric, ginger, horseradish, and, let's see, lemon juice,
That's going to make you
and
sweat.
oh yeah, man, it's great. You blend it all together. It's the most flavorful thing you've ever tasted.
Yeah,
You can put it on your food. It's the tastiest seasoning there is.
yeah.
Um, and it's also great for intestinal parasites and whatnot.
Well, technically,
And
it's not because they'll hate it, but it's really good for getting rid of them.
well, yeah, exactly. uh, and I for whatever reason, these intestinal parasites is something I've dealt with for a long time. I
Yeah,
saw a naturopathic doctor
yeah.
when I was younger, and he really got me on the path to not eat pork because pork is just full of these little bugs.
By the way, have you ever looked at turpentine for parasites as well?
I know what it is. It's from like pine trees,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, yeah. Not the. You're absolutely right. That stuff, not the new stuff, which is from an oil product, but the original
Okay.
turpentine. And Dr. Jennifer Daniels is where I came across it, but that is amazing for things like candida, but also intestinal parasites. It drives them out very fast.
Interesting. Yeah.
Funny how the
Yeah.
trees know, because that's where the sulfur products come from as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The candida actually. So let me see if I could get this right. I'm obviously not a doctor, but let me see if I can remember this. I believe candida is actually somewhat of a protective thing that is this thing your body does. Let me think. Uh, because it ties into these other bugs like Lyme disease and whatnot,
Yeah.
and basically candida is kind of a protective thing, even though it's looked at as a bad thing altogether. You know, there are some bad strains of candida that don't have any benefit, but
Well,
I'd
I
have
think
to
the other
look into
problem
it
is
more.
it can get into an overgrowth situation in order to keep
Yeah.
doing what it's doing, and that's when it becomes a problem. Otherwise, you don't want to be
Mhm.
rid of it, but you don't want
Yeah,
it out of you don't
exactly.
want to create a situation where it has to get out of balance.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with Epstein-Barr. Do you know much about that?
No, I'm aware of it, but not much about it.
So this is a really interesting story. Back in, I guess it was the early 1900s, maybe a little bit before that,
Mhm.
we weren't using any pesticides yet, and we had the bright idea to just start spraying heavy metals on our crops as a pesticide. So we were spraying arsenic and lead on our crops, you know.
Great.
Brilliant. And anyways, this so this Epstein-Barr that was already in most of us, it was just, you know, just a part of our body. It wasn't really causing any trouble. All of a sudden it got these crazy heavy metals, and a lot of these bugs like Lyme and Epstein-Barr, they just thrive on these heavy metals. It's
Mhm.
just they build these little biofilm things to hide from your cells, and they just really like these heavy metals. And so it turned this harmless little thing into a extremely dangerous bug. Um, and you know that was just that was just from us trying to treat our crops for bugs, you know.
Yeah.
And, and it's another one that kind of ties into all this Lyme disease stuff. It causes a lot of problems
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I guess it could also track back to other toxicity and heavy metal toxicity because they seem to go hand in hand from what I've been reading recently.
Hmm. Yeah, and a great way to cut your heavy metal load down is, you know, there's the blue green algae. If you get the real clean stuff from the Klamath Lake, trying to remember, I think it's up in Michigan or something. And then there's also, you know, the just regular chlorella is
Yeah.
great for grabbing heavy metals.
Yeah.
There's
Cilantro's another one, isn't it?
cilantro. Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, cilantro is
Which is
great.
coriander.
Yeah, yeah. And
Borax
anyways,
does as well.
okay, yeah. Um, yeah, and these heavy metals, you know, it's one of those things, if you can eliminate most of your body's heavy metals, you know, it takes a lot of stress off a lot of things, and
Yeah.
something those bugs really like, so it's gonna take away some of their protection.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, one of the strange things about all this Lyme disease stuff is it can, you know, make you so that you got these Th1 receptors and Th2 receptors, um, and it's basically they're your T cells. And so basically there's these cells that go after intracellular stuff like Lyme disease, and then there's stuff that goes after extracellular like mold toxins and bigger stuff floating around.
Mhm.
And a lot of times these things are supposed to be somewhat balanced, so you know you're looking equally for what's inside your cells to what's outside. But these Lyme bugs, they'll jack that up, and they'll change how you look at things, so it turns your extracellular way up, and that's where, you know, you get a lot of allergies and all that because your body just freaking out from all this stuff outside of your cells, but it's not looking into it, where there's these, you know, these crazy drills just stealing all your energy.
Hmm. Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and so,
I
one of
bet
the
it's
ways you can
not very interesting to go through though.
yeah. one of these ways you can balance it back out is taking things like quercetin, which is like I think it's related to kind of like vitamin C, just a supplement, a natural thing. And people that have allergies, they can start taking that and get off of their allergy medicines most of the time,
Hmm.
um, which is can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing, as a society, we've just gotten away with is just treating things as sacred and being ritualistic and to a certain extent. Everybody just they just live in and just doing whatever they want and just not really taking the time to be grateful for things
Yeah.
and I mean all these plants and whatnot, I believe they're somewhat sentient and they're just on a different time frame than us.
Yep.
Like Native Americans, they would smoke tobacco in a ritualistic fashion and they would thank the tobacco plant, and they would thank the mother earth, and
Yep.
I don't think they were dying from cancer all over the place like us. And
No.
I mean there's
Well, I don't think there's any other chemicals added to the tobacco plant either, like I think
yeah,
we've got. But
yeah,
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's living in harmony and balance and recognizing our place as we fit amongst everything else. And that really is missing with so many people.
yeah, definitely. And and just treating these plants as teachers and knowing that cannabis has a time and a place for certain people. I mean, it can open some doors, but a lot of people, they might just get stuck on the couch like I have been in the past and just not
No,
really do anything.
it was a good teacher for me for probably 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like any teacher, you don't want to learn from the teacher forever. You gotta figure your own shit out.
Well, it was funny
Um,
with me, because like one night I was particularly stoned and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just stopped that night and I've never gone back.
yeah, yeah, and one of the things with all this Lyme disease, the biggest problem I face really is just a lack of range of emotion. I just feel a general just flatness. I don't feel really that bad most of the time, but there's just really not too many highs, on just my own body or whatever,
Hmm.
and so that makes it difficult to be happy with a sober life.
Hmm.
But it's one of those things. I reached that enlightened state, just totally sober, obviously, and with a just real clean. I know it's the best place to be, but it could be difficult,
Have
for
you ever
people
looked
that just
into
don't feel great.
fasting?
Oh yeah, yeah. I intermittent fast
Yeah.
quite often. Um, I'm a pretty slim guy. It's hard for me to do a long fast without
Yeah.
passing out, and whatnot. But but yeah, it's there's some great, giving your gut a break is always
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Well, I found the longer I fast, the clearer this gets.
Mhm. Yeah, with that MSM and the that other I call it tonic,
Yeah.
that I make, if you if you hit that enough, your brain will just feel free and you'll just feel lightweight and just for me anyways.
I don't think a lot of people realize just how cloudy and literally dumbed down your mind gets with all the toxins and all the kind of nonsense and the exposure with, with the EMFs, but also with the foods and all the stuff on the television and everything going on. You're operating at such a low state. And if you can just free yourself from a little bit of that, it's amazing. I know when I started drinking so much distilled water, all of a sudden there was one point where I suddenly thought, Christ, I feel like I did when I was tiny. Just that amount of clarity and excitement, and the imagination came back, and my dreams switched on really high and became very interesting again. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize this just gradual decline had been going on for so long.
Yeah, I recently, so I've been looking into more of here's a great Tesla quote. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yep.
That's just so deep.
Yep.
And so I've been actually going to bed and putting on like theta waves,
Yep.
and sometimes some I think it's delta waves as well. And it's really interesting because I can get it just so much more dreaming done and just such a deeper sleep with something like that on in the background.
Mm.
because it's
Well,
just kind of syncing up with your own brain waves, I
well, that's
guess.
exactly what happens. It's vibratory resonance or sympathetic resonance. So if you have like two guitars and you play a string on one guitar, the other matching string on the other guitar will start to vibrate. Same with pianos, same with people.
Hmm.
We respond to this vibratory frequency constantly, which is how I think this idea that people think, well, I caught this virus. No, you didn't. You caught the vibratory frequency of the other man or woman that explained to your body how to shed the same sort of toxic load, and this is how you go about it. That's the kind of way I think about it. But
Yeah,
definitely, if you play that frequency to yourself, there's a Jonathan Goldman's done some really good work with the solfeggio frequencies, and you can have that playing in the background. It does amazing things to your mind and the way you feel as well.
definitely. And there's a lot of in this day, there are just so much misinformation and disinformation out there. And a lot of these people that I used to follow and really like, I'm realizing, they're more getting paid by the probably not so good people, or have some not so good intent, as far as
Yeah.
musicians and all that. But that being said, there's always little bits of truth and whatnot in their
Yeah.
stuff that you could still learn from. You can't just totally turn something off because you think that they're up to no good. I mean, there's like, Alex Jones, like maybe 80-90% of what he says is truthful, but that 10% of misinformation is,
Yeah.
is what screws everybody up.
Well,
uh
I focus on, I take what resonates from everybody.
yeah.
And then the other thing I always say is everyone brings sunshine into my life, some by arriving and some by fucking off out of it.
Yeah, so there's this rap artist here in America called Kendrick Lamar, and growing up I really liked a lot of his stuff. But there's this one line from him that's really great. It was always me versus the world until I found out it's me versus me.
Yep.
Yeah, and I more recently I've been trying to bring my karmic state back up, and if somebody needs something and I could find a way to get that to them, I've been trying to do that, and it really adds up, that just in every aspect of your life. People seem to forget this kind of little stuff. If you do good, I mean, it really comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
There's really
But
no
it's that
reason not
vibratory
to.
resonance again. You are of a certain frequency, and you can only experience the same frequency, like tuning a television. You might be on channel one, channel four is still there, but because you're not tuned to that frequency, you're not experiencing it, but it's ready and waiting for you. And I think that's what happens. If you tune yourself to the frequency of doing the good things and the right things, more of that has to come back because that's what you're attuned to.
Yeah, definitely. So
Which
there are
again means
some.
it's great because everything starts with you. Sorry for over talking you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was just gonna get into some of the treatments of Lyme and
Mm.
what I found. So there are tons of herbal methods of killing these bugs and getting them out. But for me, I'm kind of oversensitive to these things, and so like oil of oregano and things like that. If I start hitting that, I'm gonna feel horrible.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
very
it's
strong, that one.
yeah, there's tons of things like that are doable for people that can handle it. But as far as my current state, I have to take it easy on a lot of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but they have a kind of interesting. This is probably gonna maybe scare people off a little bit. It's kind of a similar technology to what the some of these new vaccines are, except for I believe they're used in a with good intent, other than anyways, they call it the SOT. They can use it to treat Lyme disease in almost all of these little bugs. You send your blood off to Greece. They make this special serum just for you off of your blood. They send it back. It's basically an encoded message in a saline solution. You go get the IV dripped in, and what it does is it sterilizes these bugs. And so they just can no longer reproduce. So after their life cycle's up, they're just gone. It stands for, let's see. Yeah, it's a supportive oligonic oligonucleotide therapy. Um,
SOT is definitely easier.
Yeah. Anyways, they've also used it to cure cancers. Um, it's a pretty neat thing to look into. It's pretty technical for me to try to describe how it works and whatnot, but it is an interesting, modern science kind of way to treat things like that. And it's I think it was like $3,500 to treat one of these bugs. So it's not cheap, but it's possible, it's not out of the reach of the average person. Um, and then there are also do you know much about ozone
Hmm.
treatments and IV ozone and
Hmm.
things like that are extremely useful. I guess I just heard this the other day. Down in Cuba, they don't have access to a lot of modern medicine and whatnot, and so they just treat everything with ozone. It's just a simple,
Hmm.
you know, kind of like the whole ClO2 thing. It's a
Yeah.
cheap thing that works. So
Yeah, there's a very good book by Ed McCabe called Flood Your Body with Oxygen. He talks a lot about stuff in there like that.
yeah, and then there's old Wim Hof, and his
Yep.
breathing techniques and
Yep.
other things similar to that, just oxygenate the body to,
Yep.
insane extent. And
Yep.
these Lyme bugs, they don't like oxygen.
Nope.
All these people walking around wearing masks all day, and you see them driving in their car by themselves wearing a mask.
Yep.
You're not getting the same amount of oxygen. and
Nope. You're asking
and
for
so
trouble.
yeah, and so these bugs, they're starting to be like, hey, this is a nice little environment. They start
Yep.
coming out and doing their thing. And there's just
Which goes back
you
to one of
know
the old spiritual teachings, isn't it? Be careful what you ask for.
yeah. Yeah, and so, along with the whole, chakra thing, working through those, a lot for me, I had tried, reading some good books about it before, and I just could never feel very connected because when your brain's full of toxins, it's for me at least, it's really hard to tap into that spiritual side of things. And I don't think a lot of people talk about that because, there's all these spiritual books and people are like, "Oh, you just need to be spiritual. You know, you just you just need to get into it." And there to me there was always a physical side of it where it just wasn't really a viable option. It just wasn't there. I couldn't tune into things. It's just
Well,
because
Robert,
I've
I think they go hand in hand, mate. If you can't cleanse your mind and your soul and your heart if you haven't cleansed your body.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I there are so many people out there, just spiritual gurus or whatnot, that just they don't talk anything about the body or it's just most people that are atheists or whatnot, it's because they've never felt anything. I mean, that's what I would assume. uh it's easy to say there's no god if you've never had any spiritual experiences.
Mhm.
Let's see, kind of all over the place. um
Those are the best conversations.
yeah. Yeah, and I found it's really great. One of the ways to kind of open up your spirituality is to find a nice tree and just go over there, put your hand on it, and just ask the tree if you want to communicate.
Yeah.
Just ask him if it's open for exchanging energies or whatever. It might sound cuckoo to some people, but you'd be surprised. You could really feel some cool little brain waves and stuff going on when you really sit down and you try communicating with plants.
When all this kicked off, all this nonsense, I go back into the old forest and I spent a long time up there talking with the trees and just getting answers and information. And I still go up there once or twice a week to get guidance and information.
Yeah, they're just extremely, wise
Yeah.
beings. I mean, like with everything, I'm sure there's some trees that might not help you, but
I've never, I mean, this is going to sound so
yeah.
daft to some people. I've never come across one that didn't, provided you go with pure intent.
Well, yeah, I've tried to communicate with some trees and they've just kind of closed off themselves from me. But other than
Mhm.
that, I've never had
Yeah.
anything bad.
The big redwoods are good if you can find them, just because they're so big and
Yeah,
old. And there's a tree near here which is nearly 1,000 years old, and you have some really interesting insights when you just go and talk to it.
yeah. The area I'm in is full of juniper trees, which are good, evergreens that
Mhm.
that like being talked to, and same thing with oaks. And I don't know if you know anything about the druids or the way they lived. That was something I was getting into a while back, and they were really, just their whole world went around, plants and trees,
Yeah,
and they were just kind of energy workers of the earth, and
yeah,
just one of those things that kind of dissolved, and
yeah.
not much of that's around anymore.
Well, it'll come back again.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it has to come back. It was funny. There's a someone I've been doing some work with, lovely woman, and one of the things I suggested she did because she was not happy about going outside was to go into the trees near the house and talk to them. And I was having a chat with her, and I said, "What did they say?" And this was her interpretation of the message, which I thought was absolutely perfect. The message was, "Where the fuck have you been?" Which I thought
Oh
was
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, these so the way that the modern house is built with wood studs,
Yeah,
and paper drywall, this drywall, the paper on top is already loaded with these mold spores. All you got to do
yeah,
is get it wet. It's just ready to go.
yeah,
And so a lot of people, they just don't put two and two together, and don't realize that these spores and toxins they're spitting out are really affecting us. And
yeah,
if you have the best immune system and you're just on top of your shit, some mold isn't going to do much to you. I mean, there are some very dangerous molds, and it's but the average mold, it doesn't necessarily have bad intent. But it is kind of territorial, and if there are more than one mold species in the same place, they're basically at war. They're sending out toxins at each other, and you're kind of stuck in the crossfire.
yeah,
And another really interesting thing is they found that if you have Wi-Fi, mold it gets pissed off,
yeah.
and so it's basically putting out at least twice as many toxins as it would if you didn't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And who doesn't have Wi-Fi?
Well,
Uh,
I have my router is disabled for Wi-Fi. It's all wired up. There are two Wi-Fi hotspots in the house which get turned on when I need them and turned off the rest of the time. And luckily, we have no spill from the neighbours here.
yeah,
But
I,
you're
I mean,
right.
I have,
Most people do.
yeah, my all my stuff is hardwired because I'm a little more aware than the average person,
Yeah,
uh, but yeah, I mean, and then who knows how all these radio signals and 5G and all that are coming into play. I'm sure
yeah,
it's not good.
no,
Um, yeah, and luckily I'm far away from any cities that are going to have 5G.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's an interesting world we're living in these days. There's
Oh,
some
I.
strange scarcity problems right now. I was just talking to a mechanic. He said it doesn't matter what make or model or year, he can't find parts for things.
Yep.
Um, I'm wondering, that big ship that got stuck in the canal or whatever. I mean, supposedly this is mostly from that, but
Did you
I
see
mean,
the strange route that took before it went into the canal?
I did,
Isn't
yes.
that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I swear we're in a movie, so
Yep.
we'll see how it plays out.
You no, you're
Um,
absolutely right. I said to Helen, this is theatre. It's all pure theatre, and it's ridiculous at this point.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so for people that don't know much about Reiki, it's a ancient Japanese kind of healing technique. It can be done through touch, or just have your hands above somebody without touching them, and basically you're just tuning into the energy, all these different energy points on the body. You're kind of feeling out what's there, and you're looking for things that are off, and you can kind of get things going. You can kind of get these vortexes back going the right way, or it's a totally intuitive thing. You just kind of got to let go, kind of try to tune into your spiritual self, and you can do this on yourself, you can do this on others. You can do it long distance, if you have permission from the third party.
Mhm.
um and it's a really great healing thing. that would probably be looked at as woo woo to the average person. But I used to go to these groups quite regularly, and we would kind of work on each other and just talk about spiritual breakthroughs and whatnot. But after all this COVID lockdowns and all this stuff, it's been a while since we've gotten back together.
Yeah.
But there's just so much out there that it's all up to you. You're people don't realize that. So your gut is probably plays maybe a bigger role than your brain and your
Oh yeah.
how you live on your day to day.
Yep.
And so everybody's got probably some bacteria down there that's not doing you any good. um and when it comes down to how you live your everyday life and how you react to things, you kind of just got to step above everything and really just be yourself. You gotta just take full responsibility for your path,
Yeah.
and really don't let these bugs take the wheel. Uh because there's just, for me anyways, I have trouble getting things done. Sometimes I'm a procrastinator, and I think that's not really the true me, or my soul or whatnot. That's just letting whatever take the wheel. You
Mhm.
kind of got to step up and be like, no, I got to do this.
Well, the best
Everything
thing
is
to do with
is up to you.
procrastination is to put it off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can wait.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's like what is it? The procrastinators club. It's like yeah, we'll meet up later, or we'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think you hit the nail on the head there with self-responsibility and self-reliance. That it's a hugely important thing. If you'll simply do that and find the questions that you want answers to and keep searching and keep addressing it and putting yourself in charge and holding yourself to a higher standard, then the whole rest of it will start to fall into place.
yeah, definitely. And the whole, like, I haven't really looked into too much feng shui, but just kind of the basics of it. If you keep your house clean, and it really leads to a clean way you feel, and you
Mhm.
keep your body clean, your mind stays clean.
And but also keeping your body clean on the inside, which is I think where a lot of
Yeah,
people fall down, is that they're constantly polluting themselves and putting more and more toxins in without realizing that will have an effect. When all this kicked off, I do so much
yeah,
more inner work, including cleansing myself more and more internally so that I've got a much better environment to work with.
oh yeah. And there are so so a lot of these toxins, they end up kind of in our gut area, and they just keep getting recycled in our bile. So every time you eat something where you need some bile acids and your body releases some bile, you might not feel that great when you eat fatty foods. And a way a lot of people deal with this is they take binders, which are things like activated charcoal and bentonite clay and things like that. You can kind of get into this detox thing where you're slowly pulling these out, and then your body releases more into your bile, and then you pull that out and detox it. It's this whole process you can go through to kind of get some more junk out of your body. And bentonite clay is really great because it's one of the more gentle binders.
Mhm.
It it they did this study where they gave animals up to, I believe, either a quarter of their diet or a third of their diet bentonite clay, and they didn't develop any deficiencies from it, because that was kind of one of the worries, because it does pull some minerals out maybe a little bit. Um, so it's really safe.
It's
You can drink
great
a
for
lot of it.
poison. Really good for
Yeah,
poison.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it grabs
Yeah.
grabs a lot of bad stuff and gets it out.
Well, I put it
Um,
in when I have a bath at night. I put apple cider vinegar, usually a bit of bicarb. There's some magnesium chloride flakes, but I also put bentonite clay in. And it's when I started to add the clay to the bath water, I noticed that the smell of chlorine and the other chemicals goes away almost straight away. So it's doing its work there.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know.
Makes the bath
Yeah.
look muddy and it leaves some residue, but it's worth it. Because my,
Yeah.
my, my partner walks in and goes, "Are you having a mud bath?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not. It's just cloudy water. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, yeah, that chlorine and fluoride and all that stuff they're putting in the water is
Yeah.
is definitely not good.
No.
Yeah, I actually have a friend of mine that owns a water filtration business, and he just has this. He got this new. He left his old manufacturer. There are a lot of problems, and he moved to a new one. So he's got kind of a new product line. But there's this neat all-in-one RO system that it doesn't have a tank, so it's not sitting in a rubber bladder, and it also remineralizes it. So you take you strip down the water to nothing but water, and then you add the calcium and magnesium back into it. It's pretty neat deal.
Yeah, I'm not. I've read that you really want to get all that back with the food rather than adding it back in. From what I've been
Well,
reading, anyway.
yeah, I don't think it hurts, having a little bit more minerals in your water, but I could be wrong.
Mm.
There's so many people on either side of that conversation. So, like I said, I'm not a doctor or scientist. I'm just a guy that's trying to figure out what works for me.
No, no, absolutely, yeah. No, I'd agree. You find your own way with everything. That's what we all have to do. And like I said to someone the other day, do not look at me to be the guy that leads you anywhere because I'll lead you astray because I'm walking my path and my path is definitely not your path.
Yeah, yeah, and there's one of the few people I follow that makes content that he actually calls out these people on the supposed I don't know what you want to call the community, but the I don't know, like the people that are trying to get out real information, the truth.
Hmm.
He's Jordan Sather. He's great. If you look him up on BitChute and stuff, he kind of calls out like these Robert David Steele guys and stuff like that are putting out a lot of disinformation. That are wolves hiding in sheep
Yeah,
clothes or whatnot.
yeah,
And you just gotta watch out what you're listening to and what you're
yeah,
taking as fact. You just gotta really think about everything. And even if there's somebody out there you really like, it's still not a bad idea to do some research of your own because
you
there's just
must.
so
You have
much
to.
junk.
Well, there
Yeah.
isn't, and no one's got all the answers. And I reserve the right to change my position as I get more information, and I sometimes have to backtrack, pick ideas up again, drop stuff because I'm figuring this out just like you are as I go, because no one's going to figure it out for me.
Yeah, we're only human. I mean, to admit that you're wrong and to change, I mean that's a huge thing to do. I mean, if you look at science, the way modern science is, if anybody brings a theory up that kind of contradicts what they've been saying, they're gonna attack it and say there's no way it's possible. Uh, it's kind of a
Well, like
crazy world we live
germ
in.
theory with an F.
I'm not familiar.
Well, germ theory, which is where they say that germs cause disease and everything,
Oh,
which
okay, yeah.
so I call it germ theory. So FEAR, fear, germ theory.
Fury, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like oh god, famous American comedian. I can't remember his name right now, but he's like it's like I don't wash my hands after I take a shit. When I do wash my hands? When I get shit on my hands. It's like I'm building my immune system, like it is what it is. There's no,
Yeah.
you can't just sanitize the world and hide from a virus. You gotta live your life and
Yeah.
just be as healthy as you can be. I mean,
That's right. Stop putting toxins in. Stop thinking toxically. Stop eating shit food. Drink clean
yep.
water. Clean your heart up. Clean your mind up. Behave nicely towards other people, and you're pretty much as far as you need to go with all that. The rest of your body knows how to fix itself if you just look after it.
Yeah, and the scary part is, old Mr. Gates owns so much farmland now in America. Um,
All part of the plan.
yeah, and there's just even if you do try to eat healthy, I mean, there's still probably all kinds of junk you're getting, and all these radio waves around. You can only do so much, but at least trying instead of looking at the world, from a nihilistic viewpoint and
Yeah.
thinking, what the hell's the point?
Well, my view's really simple. That fuckwit and all his pals don't belong here, so when they're ready, they can fucking go and leave us to
Yeah.
do what we're going to do because we'll be here long after they fall apart and everyone goes, hang on a sec, we've been had.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's strange times.
Well, I think they're exciting times. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a scary inroad and it's a bumpy one, and it's a bit like the House of Horrors right now. But at the same time, you get through the back end of this, and I think there's going to be something magnificent coming for some of us to experience, and I'm really looking forward to that. Because if this hadn't happened, there's a lot of people I'm talking to stuff about now that if I tried to talk to them even a year ago about stuff I've been looking at for decades, and they go, "You're mad." And now they're coming around and going, maybe you're not so mad after all. And I said, no, I'm still mad, but I've got some ideas.
Yeah, yeah, and, yeah, so one of the books I was reading when I was in jail and I was really working, on, just being the best I could be was, author is, Lodro Rinzler. He has this book called The Buddha Walks into a Bar, and it really just takes, just kind of a look at Buddhism from kind of a modern standpoint. It could really help, a lot of people, um, that, kind of have trouble reading kind of old texts and, whatnot. It just takes a real kind of modern look at things.
Mhm.
And then I also was reading, I believe it's called The Wheels of Life. Let me see if I can find it, which is about, chakras and activating them.
If you wouldn't mind sending me an email at some point with some of these titles, I can include that in the description of the video.
Sure. Yeah. This was by Anodea Judith. She's a PhD. Um, Really great book, and it's one of those things. I tried reading and working through it before I was kind of all cleansed out and real pure, and it was just really difficult, and there just wasn't really anything there. It's really amazes me that these kind of spiritual pathways can be shut down in by physical things.
Well,
It's
I
just
think it goes back to frequency again. If you're not capable of vibrating at that level, you can't appreciate what you're going through. I remember if you look at the mystery schools and all the Egyptian stuff, that some of them you had to fast for 40 days so that you had enough purity of mind and body to even begin to understand what you were being exposed to.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of these if you look at these kind of rituals and these psychedelic things that a lot of these tribes do, and
Hmm.
and I don't know if you're familiar with ibogaine, but it's really this kind of magical thing that
Yeah,
can cure people of addictions and
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, heroin, opioid, and stuff, but in one sitting with no withdrawal.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting stuff. I was watching a little documentary about it not too long ago, and this tribe in Africa, all they do for, I think, I want to say, is 3 or 4 days. All they do is eat the ibogaine plant and go through these different rituals and
Whoa,
do these
that's going to
different
be a
things.
trip.
Oh God. And they even had a couple of a small I don't know, 8, 10-year-old girls that were sickly, and they went through the whole thing too. Because it's just kind of a cure-all thing as well,
Yeah,
that kind of cleansing action.
yeah. But it addresses the real problem as well, because the real problem isn't just the physical toxicity, it's also mental and emotional toxicity. And those plants address that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Adrian, I think that's about everything I wanted to go over. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, you know what? I'd really appreciate you taking the time to come on because I didn't know what we were going to talk about. And I thought, how long can we talk about Lyme disease? But that was just one of what to me was a really magical conversation because it just meandered along and did its thing. And you put so much really good information in there as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll email you some links to things and whatnot you could put in the title.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. Look after yourself, brother.
You too.
Keep smiling.
All right, bye.
Bye.